In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where countless stars twinkled like scattered diamonds and planets of all shapes and sizes floated in endless darkness, humans had carved a unique place for themselves. They were not the oldest civilization, nor the most technologically advanced. But what set them apart was something far less measurable, yet far more dangerous: their sheer adaptability and resilience. From birth, humans were taught to survive in environments that seemed hostile, even deadly. Harsh deserts, toxic swamps, frozen tundras, and storm-ravaged landscapes were not just backdrops to human life, they were schools of survival. Children learned early that strength alone would not carry them through, nor would intelligence, or even luck. Only those who combined every skill they had, quick thinking, creativity, courage, and endurance, could hope to endure. This resilience had carried humans from one perilous world to another, conquering lands and making homes out of chaos, and it had earned them a reputation far beyond their own star system. Other species in the galaxy had heard tales of humans. Some told stories in hushed tones, almost like legends, of humans who had survived conditions that would kill most other species instantly. Others spoke of their military prowess, describing human fleets and soldiers as unpredictable, terrifyingly effective, and capable of feats that seemed impossible. But for all the stories that floated in galactic corridors and diplomatic halls, few had ever truly encountered a human force firsthand. Most beings only understood the humans as a force of nature, unrelenting, and often incomprehensible. At the edge of known space, far beyond the regions regularly patrolled by human explorers or traders, there existed a small alien species. They were not a dominant species, nor did they possess massive fleets or armies. Their society was built on diplomacy, on negotiation, on intricate agreements, and trade partnerships that ensured their survival. Conflict had never been their strong suit. They were careful, meticulous, and highly intelligent, capable of navigating complex social and political landscapes with elegance. Yet despite all their intelligence and careful planning, they now faced a danger unlike anything they had ever encountered. It began subtly. Scouts and observers reported strange movements beyond their star system's fleets of dark, alien ships moving with unnatural coordination. Planets once thought safe suddenly sent out signals of distress, and reports of destruction began trickling in. The aliens watched in disbelief as neighboring civilizations fell with shocking speed. Entire worlds were destroyed, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. Their species, for all its knowledge and cunning, realized that if they did nothing, they would be next. Panic began to take root, spreading through their society like a disease. The leaders convened emergency councils, calling together their wisest advisors and most experienced strategists, trying desperately to find a solution. But every plan, every strategy, every negotiation tactic failed to provide hope. Time was short. Their fleets were small and poorly armed, designed for policing minor conflicts or enforcing trade agreements, not for resisting an extermination-level threat. Their weapons, while precise, lacked the destructive power to match the enemy they now faced. Panic became desperation, and desperation led to an unlikely thought, one that they had never truly considered seriously until now. They remembered the humans. Stories of humanity's power were scattered throughout the galaxy, like fragments of warning and admiration. Some described human fleets that had survived ambushes by forces twice their size. Others told tales of humans who had faced deadly alien predators on planets where no other species could survive, emerging victorious against impossible odds. Most importantly, there was the legendary Deathworlder fleet. This was not a fleet built simply to fight. It was a fleet whose crews had trained on planets so hostile that the very air could kill unprotected aliens, where storms could crush machinery, and where predators hunted with precision and ferocity. Humans who emerged from these worlds were not just survivors. They were warriors molded by the deadliest conditions in the galaxy. The aliens had always dismissed these stories as exaggeration, folklore meant to inspire fear or respect. Now, faced with imminent annihilation, they realized that humanity might be their only hope. The decision was not easy. Calling for help from humans was risky. Humans were unpredictable, sometimes arrogant, and often acted according to their own logic, which was entirely alien to most other species. The aliens had no way to know whether humans would answer, or if they would, whether they would arrive in time. The effort required meticulous planning, crafting a signal that would reach human space, explaining the gravity of their situation without provoking anger or offense, and hoping that the humans understood the urgency. Every diplomat involved in the decision felt the weight of history on their shoulders. This was not just a plea for help. It was a call for survival, an acknowledgement that their species' fate rested in the hands of beings they had never met. Finally, the message was sent, a carefully constructed transmission carried across lectures, coded and encrypted to ensure clarity. The message outlined the dire situation, the advancing threat, and the hopelessness of their own military response. It appealed to the humans' sense of duty, their reputation for stepping into impossible situations, and perhaps, most importantly, it appealed to curiosity. Humans were known to act where others feared to tread, drawn to challenges that promised danger and the chance to test themselves, whether by honor, duty, or instinct. Humans had a history of showing up when others would not. As the message sped through the void, the aliens could do nothing but wait. Days passed, and every passing hour brought more destruction closer to their worlds. Panic had become near hysteria. Citizens fled to inner planets. Bunkers were activated, and the alien leaders could feel the weight of failure pressing down upon them. And then, finally, a response came. Human ships, unmistakable in their design, appeared on the outskirts of their star systems. The Deathworlder fleet, the stuff of legend, had answered. Ships built for combat in the deadliest conditions, crewed by humans who had been forged on the harshest planets, now moved with precision toward the alien system. The aliens watched in awe, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over them. They had never truly believed humans would arrive, certainly not with such speed and decisiveness. The sight of the fleet alone was intimidating. Heavily armed ships bristling with weaponry, capable of surviving attacks that would obliterate ordinary fleets, and accompanied by smaller vessels that moved with deadly precision. Humans, it seemed, were exactly as terrifying as the legends had described. And yet, in this moment, they were the aliens' salvation. Even as the humans approached, the alien leaders understood that hope came with a price. Humans were not saviors who would act out of charity alone. They were calculated, relentless, and demanded respect for their strategy and authority. The aliens prepared their worlds, coordinating what defenses they could, ensuring that supply lines and population centers were ready to support the humans' arrival. Every detail mattered. The humans' presence was a lifeline, but also a test of aliens had to prove that they were capable of working with such a formidable ally. In the silence of space, the anticipation was almost unbearable. Every transmission from the human fleet was closely analyzed, every movement studied. The aliens were learning, in real time, what it meant to work with humans. For centuries, they had relied on diplomacy, intelligence, and negotiation. Yet now they had to confront a raw, direct power that defied their usual understanding. Humanity was no ordinary species. The Deathworlder fleet embodied the essence of human survival, cunning, and sheer force of will. And so, as the first human ships entered orbit around the alien homeworlds, the species looked on with a mixture of awe and hope. They had reached the point where their own skills and technologies could not save them. The fate of their civilization, perhaps the survival of their entire species, now rested on humans, creatures both terrifying and extraordinary. In that moment, every alien being understood the truth that had been whispered across the galaxy for generations. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and unstoppable when they chose to act. And for the first time, the aliens felt a cautious optimism, knowing that, against all odds, help had come from the most unlikely and feared source in the galaxy. The alien species watched the approaching human fleet with a mix of awe and apprehension. They had never experienced anything like this before. Humans, with their enormous ships and unpredictable tactics, were not just visitors. They were a force of nature, coming to intervene in a conflict that the aliens had no hope of facing alone. As the Deathworlder fleet moved steadily through space, the aliens began to understand why stories of human warriors had circulated throughout the galaxy for generations. This was not a fleet built simply for show. It was forged to operate in the most hostile conditions imaginable. Every ship, every weapon, and every crew member had been honed to function under extreme stress, in environments where other species would falter or die. But despite the impressive sight, the humans' arrival was only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. The alien leaders had initially believed that the human fleet would act as a simple shield, a way to protect their homeworlds while their own forces regrouped. They soon realized that humans did not operate in such predictable ways. Instead of waiting passively for the enemy to attack, the fleet's commanders began analyzing the situation with cold precision. They studied the enemy movements, assessed potential strategies, and began preparing a series of maneuvers that seemed almost reckless, but were in fact carefully calculated. The aliens, accustomed to slow, deliberate diplomacy, were amazed. Humans did not waste time with hesitation or debate. They acted swiftly, decisively, and with purpose. As the fleet advanced deeper into the alien sector, it became clear just how dangerous the journey would be. The space between the human ships and the alien worlds was littered with hazards. Asteroid fields, ion storms, and rogue gravitational anomalies posed a constant threat. Navigation alone would challenge even the most experienced pilots. Yet the human crews moved with confidence, weaving through dangers that would have destroyed ordinary vessels. Every maneuver demonstrated not only their skill but also their extraordinary endurance. The crews were trained for conditions far harsher than anything the aliens could imagine. While the alien species relied on shields, sensors, and careful calculations, humans relied on intuition, adaptability, and an unflinching willingness to take risks when the reward justified it. Tensions within the human fleet were not absent. However, even the most disciplined humans were tested by the constant stress of space travel in hostile territory. Supplies had to be carefully managed, engines maintained, and communications kept open across vast distances. Every decision had consequences, and the commanders had to balance speed with caution. They faced moral and tactical dilemmas simultaneously: how to protect the aliens, how to minimize damage to their own ships, and how to confront an enemy that had already destroyed civilizations without hesitation. Each step forward demanded creative thinking, swift judgment, and a willingness to embrace danger that other species might avoid at all costs. Meanwhile, the aliens observed in a mix of hope and fear. Their civilization, built on negotiation and strategy, had never witnessed warfare of this intensity. Their fleets were small, designed to enforce trade agreements or maintain local order, not to confront annihilation-level threats. Seeing humans approach with such confidence was both reassuring and frightening. Reassuring because hope was arriving in the form of beings capable of facing almost any danger. Frightening because humans were unpredictable, and the aliens had no way of knowing exactly how they would respond in critical situations. Every signal transmitted from the human ships carried a weight of authority, an implicit message that humans did not merely arrive, they commanded. As they neared the sector, human commanders began sending reconnaissance teams ahead. These teams scouted potential ambush points, detected enemy positions, and analyzed environmental hazards. Unlike other species that relied heavily on technology, humans combined their instruments with human judgment, instinct, and experience. They could anticipate enemy strategies by reading patterns and behaviors, often predicting moves before the enemy executed them. This combination of technology and intuition made them extraordinarily effective, and the aliens could not help but marvel at the precision and efficiency of every operation. The journey was not without danger. Patrols of the enemy species began to notice the human fleet, sending advanced warships to intercept them. Skirmishes erupted in the void of space, brief but intense battles that tested every aspect of human preparation. Alien observers watched in shock as humans engaged with overwhelming courage and skill. Ships that seemed outmatched in size and firepower moved with coordination and agility that turned the tide of each encounter. Human crews executed maneuvers that appeared reckless at first glance, diving through asteroid belts, weaving through ion storms, but each action had a purpose, each risk calculated and deliberate. By the time the aliens fully understood what was happening, they realized that humans were shaping the battlefield itself, manipulating conditions in ways that gave them the upper hand. Inside the alien worlds, panic still lingered. Citizens had been evacuated from vulnerable areas, bunkers reinforced, and emergency protocols activated. Yet hope flickered, growing brighter with each passing hour as reports of human progress reached them. The Deathworlder fleet was more than a military force, it was a symbol. Their presence inspired courage in a society that had been paralyzed by fear. For the first time in weeks, aliens dared to imagine survival as a real possibility. They observed humans not just with relief, but with fascination. These creatures, forged on planets where survival itself was a struggle, had turned that experience into mastery. They had learned to thrive in conditions designed to destroy others, and now they brought that mastery to protect an entirely different species. Human commanders also had to navigate internal challenges. Crews came from diverse human worlds, each with its own culture, history, and approach to problems. Coordination required discipline, respect, and adaptability. Miscommunication could result in disaster, and yet humans thrived under these pressures. Differences became strengths, with unique skills and perspectives contributing to the fleet's overall effectiveness. The alien species, accustomed to uniformity and careful adherence to protocol, were struck by the flexibility and creativity that defined human operations. That humans did not wait for permission at every turn, they acted decisively, adapting to circumstances as they arose. As the fleet drew closer to the alien homeworlds, the stakes grew ever higher. Enemy forces increased in number and aggression. Sensing the humans' approach and intent on stopping them before they could intervene, human commanders anticipated these moves, creating strategies that balanced aggression with protection. Their knowledge of Deathworld tactics came into play, tactics that emphasized using the environment to advantage, turning hazards into weapons, and forcing the enemy into situations where survival was impossible. Every choice demonstrated the uniqueness of human strategy, bold, sometimes shocking, yet devastatingly effective. For the alien leaders, this was both terrifying and reassuring. Humans were not only effective fighters, they were unyielding. Every plan, every maneuver, every engagement reflected a mindset shaped by survival on planets that demanded extreme resilience. The aliens could see why humanity was feared, why legends had grown about their capacity for endurance, intelligence, and ruthless precision. The Deathworlder fleet embodied everything that made humans exceptional: adaptability, courage, ingenuity, and an almost innate understanding of danger. During this period, small moments revealed more about the human species than battles alone could show. Reports trickled in about human engineers repairing ships under fire, medics treating injuries in impossible conditions, and crews maintaining morale through humor and camaraderie. The aliens watched these accounts with fascination. Unlike their species, humans thrived under pressure, even using adversity to strengthen bonds and sharpen skills. Where aliens would falter in fear or despair, humans found focus, energy, and determination. Every human action reflected a culture of survival that the aliens could barely comprehend, a combination of pragmatism, ingenuity, and a willingness to risk everything for a goal deemed worthy. As the fleet approached the critical sector, the first signs of the enemy's main force appeared on scanners. Massive warships, armed with devastating weapons, moved in formations that could crush ordinary fleets. The alien leaders grew anxious, fearing that the humans might be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. But the human response was confident, deliberate, and terrifyingly effective. Rather than retreating or hesitating, human commanders began deploying ships in patterns designed to exploit weaknesses in enemy formation. They calculated trajectories, timing, and positioning with precision, preparing to strike in ways that minimized risk to the alien worlds. Throughout this journey, communication between humans and aliens became critical. The aliens had never operated alongside a species so unpredictable, and misunderstandings could have disastrous consequences. Yet, over time, a tentative trust developed. Humans, while independent and assertive, respected the aliens' needs and constraints. The aliens, in turn, began to rely on human judgment, learning to appreciate a form of thinking that combined instinct, experience, and ingenuity in ways their species could not replicate. By the time the human fleet reached the edge of the alien homeworlds, the alien population had begun to grasp the scope of what was arriving. These were not mere warriors. They were a force capable of turning despair into hope. Their journey had been long, fraught with danger, and tested to the limit. Yet the humans had arrived intact, organized, and prepared to act. For the alien species, this moment marked a turning point. They were no longer facing annihilation with only their own limited resources. Now, humanity had arrived, bringing with them the unmatched skill, courage, and determination of the Deathworlder fleet. And though the enemy remained formidable, and the danger far from over, a new sense of possibility had emerged. Hope, once fragile, had been reignited. The humans had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, strategic brilliance, courage, and unyielding determination could overcome the impossible. The alien species realized, with growing respect and awe, that their survival was no longer just a distant dream, it was within reach. Thanks to the arrival of beings whose reputation for danger, chaos, and brilliance was fully justified. As the human Deathworlder fleet entered the alien system, the reality of the threat became unavoidable. The alien species had warned them of the enemy's power, but nothing could have truly prepared the humans for what lay ahead. Vast armadas of enemy ships, larger and more numerous than anything in known space, filled the void around the alien planets. These were not ordinary warships. They were engineered for destruction, bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire cities, and commanded by beings whose ruthlessness had already left multiple civilizations in ashes. From a distance, the fleet looked invincible. It moved with precision and coordination that suggested experience and intelligence far beyond ordinary comprehension. Yet the humans, who had faced Deathworld conditions and countless impossible scenarios, did not flinch. Instead, they approached with a calm, methodical focus that had carried them across light years of perilous space. The first signs of engagement were subtle. Scout ships from the human fleet observed enemy patrols, noting patterns in their formations, weaknesses in their coordination, and the tendencies of their commanders. Unlike other species who might have panicked or waited for the enemy to make the first move, humans were proactive. They analyzed the battlefield, planned strikes, and prepared contingencies for every possible reaction. Their approach was both terrifying and mesmerizing. The aliens watching the events unfold were struck by the combination of patience and audacity. Every maneuver was calculated, yet it carried the confidence of a species that understood risk in ways the aliens could not. Soon, the first encounters began. Small skirmishes erupted in space, with human fighters darting through the gaps between massive enemy cruisers. These smaller ships, designed for speed and maneuverability, struck at vulnerable points with surgical precision. Enemy weapons fired in response, unleashing devastating energy blasts that could have destroyed entire fleets. But the humans adapted instantly, weaving through fire, using gravitational anomalies and asteroid belts to their advantage, turning hazards into shields and traps. Every attack was a lesson in ingenuity. Every retreat was part of a larger strategy designed to lure the enemy into positions where they could be struck most effectively. The aliens, accustomed to slow, measured warfare, could barely comprehend the speed and adaptability on display. Meanwhile, the larger human ships moved with deliberate, unstoppable force. These vessels, massive and heavily armed, served as both shields and weapons. They absorbed attacks that would have crippled ordinary fleets, maintaining formation while unleashing counterstrikes that decimated enemy lines. The Deathworlder fleet was a perfect blend of brute strength and tactical genius. Its presence alone altered the dynamics of battle, forcing the enemy to react rather than dictate the pace. The aliens, observing from their worlds, began to understand why humans were considered one of the deadliest species in the galaxy. They were not only resilient but also relentless, capable of facing overwhelming odds and turning them into opportunities for victory. As battles escalated, the stakes became increasingly dire. Entire planets within the alien system were under threat. Enemy ships fired massive bombardments aimed at population centers, creating firestorms and devastation on the surface. The aliens' own defensive fleets, limited in number and firepower, struggled to hold the line. Panic began to spread once more among civilians, who feared that the humans might arrive too late. But the human commanders were prepared for such scenarios. They coordinated orbital defenses, deploying drones, fighter squadrons, and precision strikes to neutralize threats before they could reach the planets below. Their actions were swift, efficient, and highly effective. Human ingenuity turned the tide, saving cities that would otherwise have been lost. On the ground, the aliens faced chaos. Evacuations were underway, shelters filled beyond capacity, and emergency services strained to keep up with the devastation. But through it all, humans worked with extraordinary precision. Recon teams guided evacuations, using information gathered from orbital scans to identify safe routes and potential hazards. Human medics and engineers assisted wherever possible, stabilizing critical systems and tending to the wounded. The aliens, watching these efforts, were struck not only by the humans' martial prowess but also by their ability to maintain compassion and order amidst the chaos. It was a combination of ruthlessness against the enemy and care for allies that left a deep impression. The turning point came when humans began executing their most daring strategies. They used the environment itself as a weapon, forcing enemy ships into deadly asteroid fields, energy storms, and planetary gravity wells. What seemed like reckless maneuvers were in fact carefully planned traps, designed to exploit weaknesses in the enemy's approach. Human pilots darted in and out of hazardous areas with breathtaking skill, drawing fire and attention while larger ships struck from unexpected angles. Each move was calculated to maximize damage to the enemy while minimizing risk to allied populations and infrastructure. The aliens could only watch in awe, realizing that humans' reputation as unpredictable warriors was well earned. Despite their successes, the human fleet faced losses. Some ships were damaged or destroyed, crews injured, and supply lines threatened. Yet even in the face of setbacks, they maintained cohesion. Morale remained high, discipline unwavering. Unlike other species, who might break under pressure, humans seemed to thrive on adversity. Challenges that would demoralize others became opportunities to demonstrate skill, courage, and resilience. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened the fleet's confidence and intensified the pressure on the enemy. The aliens themselves began participating more actively as the situation evolved. Encouraged by the humans' effectiveness, they began following the guidance and strategies offered by the human commanders. Even minor contributions from the aliens, when combined with human tactics, had a significant impact. Defensive systems became more coordinated, evacuation efforts more efficient, and counterattacks more effective. Humans, while formidable on their own, understood the value of collaboration. They leveraged the aliens' local knowledge while introducing strategies that the aliens had never considered, demonstrating a rare combination of leadership and adaptability. Throughout the engagement, the enemy remained relentless. They were aware of the human presence and sought to neutralize it with increasing intensity. Massive warships attempted to outflank the human fleet, and waves of smaller attack vessels tried to break through defenses. The battles became more complex, more dangerous, and more unpredictable. Human commanders responded with creativity and precision, reorganizing formations, redeploying assets, and executing maneuvers that seemed impossible under the circumstances. Every action demonstrated not only skill but also the mental fortitude required to fight in a war that could easily overwhelm lesser beings. As the conflict reached its peak, the aliens witnessed moments that would forever be remembered in their history. Human squads executed daring boarding operations on enemy vessels, disabling critical systems and turning ships against their own forces. Precision strikes destroyed key enemy command centers in orbit, disrupting coordination and morale. On multiple occasions, humans risked their own lives to protect alien civilians, performing feats that combined courage, ingenuity, and selflessness. These acts were more than military maneuvers. They were demonstrations of a culture forged in adversity, a species that understood survival as an art and a science. In the chaos of the critical moments, communication and decision-making were vital. Human commanders relied on rapid analysis, instinct, and experience to make split-second decisions. Orders were clear, concise, and executed without hesitation. The alien observers, used to slower, bureaucratic chains of command, marveled at the speed and effectiveness of human coordination. Every victory, every defensive action, and every tactical maneuver was a testament to the humans' capacity to think, adapt, and act under pressure. The intensity of the battles also revealed something about the human psyche. They were fearless, but not reckless. They understood risk, and they calculated it constantly. They could anticipate enemy strategies, exploit weaknesses, and adapt to unexpected challenges with astonishing speed. At the same time, they maintained discipline, morale, and unity, even when facing overwhelming odds. The alien species, despite having experienced centuries of conflict and diplomacy, could barely comprehend the scale of human resilience and ingenuity. As the critical engagement continued, the aliens began to understand the broader implications of the humans' presence. The Deathworlder fleet was not merely defending them, it was reshaping the entire conflict. Enemy forces, which had once seemed invincible, began to falter under the relentless human tactics. Command structures broke down, coordination failed, and morale dropped. The humans, with a combination of strategy, technology, and sheer determination, turned to the battle in ways that no one, alien or otherwise, could have predicted. In these moments, hope blossomed where there had only been despair. Civilians, previously paralyzed by fear, began to assist with evacuation and recovery efforts, inspired by the courage and effectiveness of the human warriors. Alien military leaders, previously overwhelmed by the scale of the threat, adapted to new tactics and began to contribute meaningfully to the fight. The humans, while demanding in their expectations and precise in their strategy, encouraged cooperation and innovation. Their presence transformed the alien species' approach to survival and warfare, teaching lessons that would endure long after the immediate threat had passed. By the end of this phase of the conflict, the critical moment had passed, but not without cost. Many ships had been damaged or lost, and countless lives had been at risk. Yet the humans had achieved what had seemed impossible. They had halted the advance of a seemingly unstoppable enemy, protected the alien worlds from immediate destruction, and laid the foundation for further operations that could drive the invaders back entirely. The aliens, exhausted and awed, finally understood why humans were feared, respected, and, in some circles, revered. Their reputation was not exaggeration, it was reality. And it had just been demonstrated in the most dramatic way possible. The events of this critical phase left a lasting impression on everyone involved. Humans had shown not only their martial prowess but also their ability to inspire hope, adapt to impossible circumstances, and turn desperation into opportunity. For the alien species, this was a revelation. They had witnessed firsthand a species that thrived under conditions that would have destroyed them, that combined intellect, courage, and ingenuity in ways they had never imagined. The Deathworlder fleet was more than a force of war, it was a testament to the extraordinary potential of humanity, and a promise that even in the face of annihilation, survival and victory were possible. The aftermath of the critical battles left the alien worlds in a state of fragile hope. The enemy, once seemingly unstoppable, had been pushed back by the relentless and methodical tactics of the human Deathworlder fleet. Yet the situation was far from over. Humans understood that victory was not merely about stopping the immediate threats, it was about securing the system, protecting the population, and ensuring that the enemy would not return to finish what they had started. The scale of the challenge was immense, but the humans approached it with the same combination of intelligence, courage, and experience that had brought them this far. From orbit, human commanders assessed the remaining enemy forces. They did not underestimate the danger. Even battered and retreating, these warships were capable of tremendous destruction. Humans recognized that chasing a damaged enemy could be risky. Traps might be waiting, and overconfidence could lead to disaster. Instead, they carefully calculated each move, planning precise strikes while ensuring that the alien planets and populations remained safe. Their strategy combined aggression with caution, showing both a mastery of combat and a deep understanding of responsibility. The alien observers, who had spent their lives studying warfare, were astonished by this level of discipline and foresight. The humans began by isolating key enemy vessels and command centers. Using advanced sensors and reconnaissance, they located the most dangerous ships and orchestrated simultaneous attacks from multiple angles. Smaller human fighters darted in and out, striking weak points, while larger ships delivered devastating volleys to incapacitate critical systems. This combination of speed, precision, and raw firepower was unlike anything the aliens had ever witnessed. It was a display of strategy honed through generations of survival on hostile worlds where failure meant death. For the aliens, it became clear that human success was not the result of luck or chance, it was the product of careful planning, adaptability, and unshakable courage. While orbital battles raged, human teams coordinated with alien ground forces to stabilize key locations. Evacuations, repairs, and defensive measures were conducted with military precision. Hospitals and shelters were reinforced, supply lines protected, and civilians guided to safe zones. The humans were not merely fighting the enemy, they were actively rebuilding, stabilizing, and protecting life. Every action reflected a balance of aggression against the invaders and care for those they were defending. The aliens could not help but marvel at this duality. Humans were simultaneously destroyers and protectors, capable of unleashing lethal force while maintaining an unwavering commitment to life. Human ingenuity shone in the ways they exploited their environment. Gravity wells, asteroid belts, and planetary magnetic fields were used strategically to hinder enemy movements and amplify human firepower. They turned hazards into advantages, forcing enemy ships into positions where they could be struck decisively. Each maneuver was a lesson in creative warfare, demonstrating a capacity to see opportunity in danger. The aliens watched as battles that might have seemed hopeless were turned into victories by careful planning, risk-taking, and relentless persistence. Humans were not only formidable warriors, they were masters of the battlefield itself. Communication and coordination within the human fleet were critical. Orders were transmitted with clarity and speed, and every crew member understood their role in the larger plan. In moments of crisis, humans acted decisively, improvising when necessary but always with the objective in mind. Alien leaders observed with growing respect, unlike their own species, which often became paralyzed by bureaucracy or indecision. Humans thrived under pressure, making rapid and effective choices that shaped the outcome of the conflict. The level of cohesion and mutual trust among human crews was extraordinary, a testament to both their training and their unique culture of resilience. As the enemy forces weakened, the humans began targeting their command structure. Key warships and control centers were disabled, communications jammed, and logistical networks destroyed. The enemy, once coordinated and threatening, became disorganized and desperate. Human tactics combined direct attacks with psychological strategies designed to undermine morale and create confusion. Each victory was decisive, leaving the invaders no room to regroup or recover. The aliens were astounded. They had faced threats before, but never with such comprehensive mastery, where every element of strategy, firepower, and psychology was applied simultaneously to achieve overwhelming advantage. Despite their power, the humans did not act recklessly. Collateral damage was minimized wherever possible. Alien cities, infrastructure, and civilians were protected as carefully as human lives. Humans demonstrated an almost unparalleled ability to combine ferocity with precision, ensuring that their actions against the enemy did not inadvertently harm those they were defending. For the aliens, this was a revelation. They had assumed that humans, with their reputation for chaos and danger, might act without concern for consequence. Yet, they were witnessing a species capable of executing lethal strategies with discipline, care, and intelligence, an unpredictable combination that made humans both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As the conflict drew toward its climax, humans executed their final strikes. Enemy fleets, already weakened and demoralized, faced coordinated assaults from multiple directions. Fighters and capital ships worked in harmony, overwhelming defenses and striking at critical vulnerabilities. The entire warships were captured or destroyed, and the enemy command was effectively dismantled. This decisive action secured the alien system and ensured that the threat of immediate annihilation was removed. For the aliens, the moment was almost surreal. The beings they had feared, the humans, had achieved what no other species could. They had not only defended the planets but had also neutralized a force that had seemed invincible. The resolution of the conflict was not merely a matter of military success. Humans took steps to ensure long-term stability. Remaining enemy elements were monitored, defensive positions reinforced, and the alien species given guidance on rebuilding critical infrastructure. Human teams remained on alert, ready to respond to any resurgence of threat. This approach reflected a strategic mindset that combined immediate action with foresight, ensuring that victory was not temporary but lasting. The aliens, who had once relied solely on negotiation and careful calculation, witnessed the humans' ability to integrate strategy, execution, and protection into a single, coherent approach. Throughout this phase, the aliens came to understand the full scope of human capability. Humans were not just strong or fearless, they were adaptable, innovative, and relentless. They could endure extreme conditions, respond to unforeseen challenges, and achieve objectives that would have seemed impossible to other species. Their success was not the result of luck or chance. It was the outcome of skill, preparation, and determination. The alien population, who had been on the brink of despair, began to feel a deep sense of gratitude and awe. Humans had arrived in the darkest hour, and their actions had saved countless lives. The aftermath of the resolution also revealed the human approach to leadership and cooperation. Commanders empowered their crews, trusting them to make decisions when circumstances required it, while maintaining overall strategic control. The alien species observed a level of mutual trust and accountability that was remarkable. Every member of the fleet understood their purpose, their role, and the consequences of failure. Yet they were encouraged to act creatively when necessary. This combination of discipline and flexibility created a force that was nearly unstoppable, demonstrating the unique qualities that made humans exceptional in the eyes of the galaxy. By the end of this phase, the alien worlds were secure. The immediate threat had been neutralized, and the enemy, scattered and weakened, posed no further risk in the short term. The human fleet, while battered from the intensity of the engagements, remained organized, disciplined, and capable of further action if necessary. The aliens, who had feared extinction, could now breathe freely for the first time in weeks. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a species that had taken impossible odds and transformed them into survival, protection, and victory. Humans did not linger unnecessarily. They completed their objectives, ensured stability, and prepared for departure. Their actions left a lasting impression on the aliens, who now understood that humans were more than warriors. They were a force of calculated brilliance, capable of reshaping outcomes and protecting life even in the most extreme circumstances. The Deathworlder fleet had demonstrated that strategy, courage, and adaptability could overcome nearly any obstacle in the quiet that followed. The alien species reflected on the humans' arrival and the battles that had saved their civilization. They had faced annihilation, yet thanks to the Deathworlder fleet, they survived. The lessons were clear. Courage, skill, and adaptability could turn despair into triumph, and the presence of humans had proven that hope could exist even in the darkest moments. For the first time, the aliens truly appreciated the full scale of human capability, their resilience, their ingenuity, and their willingness to confront danger head-on. Humanity, they realized, was not simply a species among many. It was a force of survival and mastery, capable of changing the fate of entire civilizations. The resolution of this phase marked a turning point in the galaxy's perception of humans. Stories would spread of their courage, strategy, and effectiveness. Civilizations that had once dismissed humans as chaotic and reckless would come to understand the calculated power behind their reputation. The aliens themselves, who had experienced the humans' skill firsthand, would carry these lessons into the future. The Deathworlder fleet had not only saved lives but had also reshaped understanding, proving that humans could answer the most desperate calls for help and prevail where others could not. When the battles finally ended and the dust of destruction settled across the alien world, a profound sense of relief washed over the civilizations that had been on the brink of annihilation. The alien species, once terrified and desperate, could finally breathe and begin to comprehend what had truly occurred. Their survival was no longer uncertain, and the heroes responsible for this salvation were the humans, the mysterious Deathworlder fleet whose reputation had been spoken of across the galaxy in awe and fear. For the aliens, witnessing humanity in action had been transformative. They had seen a species that thrived under circumstances that would have destroyed others, a species whose courage, intelligence, and adaptability could turn hopeless situations into victories. The human fleet, though battered from the series of intense engagements, remained organized, disciplined, and fully operational. Humans had a reputation for resilience, and this reputation was fully justified. They had endured impossible conditions, faced overwhelming enemies, and still executed each action with precision and purpose. The aliens, who had been trained in diplomacy, negotiation, and careful planning, now realized that humans operated under a completely different set of principles. They did not rely solely on technology or brute force. They relied on ingenuity, adaptability, teamwork, and an unyielding determination to survive and succeed. Every ship, every soldier, every decision contributed to the outcome, demonstrating a level of coordination and foresight that left the aliens both astonished and inspired. In the immediate aftermath, humans focused on consolidating the gains they had achieved. Enemy ships that had survived the engagements were monitored and, where necessary, neutralized. Key strategic locations were secured to prevent any resurgence of hostile forces. Humans also worked closely with the alien leaders to restore stability to the planet's critical systems. Communications, networks, energy grids, and defensive installations were repaired or reinforced. It was a meticulous process, carried out with the same precision and discipline that had defined the fleet's actions during combat. Every decision was informed by experience and the understanding that the smallest oversight could result in future disaster. For the aliens, the experience was nothing short of revolutionary. They had long relied on negotiation, caution, and diplomacy to protect their civilizations. Yet they had been powerless against a threat that ignored treaties, diplomacy, and reason. Humans had arrived as an unpredictable force, yet their methods had been far more effective than anything the aliens could have planned themselves. Watching humans stabilize entire planets, while simultaneously preparing for further engagements, demonstrated a combination of competence, courage, and foresight that the aliens had never seen before. The lesson was clear. Sometimes, survival required not just intelligence or careful planning, but boldness, creativity, and the willingness to confront danger head-on as the immediate dangers subsided. Humans also prioritized the well-being of the alien population. Civilians who had been displaced by evacuations began returning to their homes, guided by human teams who ensured that basic necessities such as food, water, medical care, and shelter were available. Hospitals, clinics, and emergency centers were staffed and supplied to treat the injured. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair infrastructure damaged during the battles. Even in victory, humans maintained a focus on protection and care, demonstrating a form of responsibility that went far beyond simply defeating an enemy. That aliens began to see humans as not only warriors but also as guardians, beings whose lethal efficiency was matched by their capacity for compassion and practical problem-solving. During this period, a bond began to form between the humans and the aliens. The alien leaders, initially anxious about whether humans could be trusted, had observed their discipline, intelligence, and ethical approach in action. Humans had proven that they could be relied upon in moments of extreme danger. Mutual respect grew as the two species collaborated on rebuilding efforts, establishing defensive protocols, and sharing knowledge. The aliens had learned that humans were not only formidable in battle but also capable of fostering cooperation, inspiring confidence, and teaching valuable lessons in resilience and survival. The human approach to leadership and organization was particularly striking. Commanders empowered their crews, trusting them to act decisively when necessary while maintaining strategic oversight. This balance of autonomy and coordination created an environment where every individual could contribute meaningfully to the success of the mission. The aliens, who had often relied on strict hierarchies and rigid protocols, observed with fascination. They realized that part of what made humans so effective was their ability to combine discipline with creativity, structure with flexibility. This approach had allowed the humans to react dynamically to evolving situations, turning uncertainty and chaos into opportunities for success. As the days passed, the alien society began to reflect on the broader implications of humanity's intervention. For generations they had considered themselves intelligent and capable, yet they had been powerless in the face of a threat that humans had overcome with remarkable efficiency. This realization sparked both humility and inspiration. The aliens understood that survival required not only intelligence but also adaptability, courage, and a willingness to take calculated risks. They began to internalize lessons observed in the humans' actions, lessons that would influence their society for generations to come. Humans had not only saved their lives, they had transformed the aliens' understanding of what was possible under extreme circumstances. Stories of the humans' heroism began to circulate rapidly among the alien population. Tales of daring maneuvers, precision strikes, and selfless actions spread like wildfire. Civilians who had witnessed the battles firsthand shared their experiences, describing humans as beings of extraordinary courage and skill. Scientists and military leaders began analyzing human tactics, seeking to learn from their strategies and apply them to future challenges. The Deathworlder fleet had left an indelible mark on the alien psyche, creating a sense of awe and respect that would endure long after the humans departed. Even as humans prepared to leave the system, they ensured that the alien species was equipped to maintain its own security. Defensive systems were upgraded, protocols for monitoring potential threats were established, and training programs were implemented to help the aliens better respond to future dangers. The humans had not merely fought a war on behalf of the aliens, they had empowered them to survive independently in the future. This approach reflected a combination of pragmatism and foresight, demonstrating that true strength lay not only in victory but also in the capacity to secure lasting stability. For the aliens, the departure of the humans was bittersweet. Relief and gratitude were mixed with awe and lingering curiosity about the species that had saved them. They had witnessed firsthand the abilities that had earned humans their legendary status, their resilience, ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Humans had operated in conditions that would have broken other species, yet they had emerged not only victorious but also organized, disciplined, and effective. The aliens could not help but wonder about the full extent of human potential and the many worlds where such abilities might be applied. As the alien society began the slow process of rebuilding, reflections on the events deepened. Leaders and citizens alike considered the lessons humanity had imparted. Adaptability, decisiveness, and boldness had proven essential in moments of crisis. The aliens realized that their reliance solely on negotiation and careful planning had been insufficient in the face of existential threats. Humans had shown them that courage and creativity, coupled with preparation and discipline, could turn impossible odds into achievable objectives. This revelation would shape their culture, militarily, and approach to governance for generations. The psychological impact on the alien population was profound. Fear and despair had been replaced with confidence and hope. Civilians who had feared extinction now looked toward the future with renewed optimism. They had learned, through observation and direct interaction, that survival often depended on qualities they had not previously valued to their full extent. Humans had not only saved their civilization, they had inspired a transformation in the way they thought about danger, risk, and resilience. Even as time passed, the memory of humans' intervention would remain vivid. The alien species would recount the battles, the daring strategies, and the precision with which the humans executed their plans. Schools would teach about the courage and ingenuity of the Deathworlder fleet. Military academies would analyze the tactics, seeking to incorporate elements of human thinking into their own doctrine. Civilians would remember the moments when humans had saved lives and inspired courage, understanding that even in the darkest hours, there could be hope when skill and determination met. Opportunity. In reflecting on the broader significance of humanity's actions, the aliens realized that the intervention had not only been a display of martial prowess, but also a profound act of interstellar solidarity. Humans had answered a call for help from a distant species, not for profit, power, or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. This willingness to act decisively, even across vast distances and against overwhelming odds, underscored a philosophy that was rare in the galaxy. Humans were not merely warriors, they were agents of change, capable of shifting the course of entire civilizations through courage, intelligence, and action. The aliens' understanding of humans grew even deeper as they considered the long-term implications. Humans had operated in ways that combined instinct, experience, and strategy to achieve remarkable outcomes. They had survived in environments that seemed impossible, adapted to evolving threats, and preserved life even while delivering lethal force to their enemies. This combination of qualities, resilience, intelligence, courage, and compassion, was unprecedented in the galaxy. The aliens realized that humanity's influence extended beyond the battlefield. It was a force that could inspire, educate, and transform other species. In the final analysis, the alien civilization emerged stronger, wiser, and more united. The intervention of the Deathworlder fleet had preserved their lives and safeguarded their future. More importantly, it had instilled a profound understanding of the principles that underpinned survival in a dangerous universe: courage, adaptability, precision, and an unwavering commitment to objectives. The humans' actions had been a masterclass in strategy, leadership, and resilience, leaving a lasting legacy that would shape the alien species' culture, governance, and military thinking for generations to come. As the human fleet departed, leaving the alien worlds in a state of stability and hope, the aliens reflected on the extraordinary journey they had witnessed. Humanity, in their courage, skill, and determination, had proven themselves worthy of the legendary status that preceded them. They had answered a call for help in a way that few species could, turning desperation into victory and fear into admiration. The aliens knew that this encounter would remain a defining moment in their history, a story of survival, partnership, and the remarkable power of a species forged by the deadliest conditions the galaxy had ever seen.